So, this may be the last Pactium video, I'm not sure. But it occurs to me that, while it's very, very clear to me that the creation of agreements between sentient image bearers that are self-aware and self-examined is the way to avoid control and manipulation, a way to avoid people controlling each other, a way to avoid sinning against somebody else's God-given volition, cognition, and emotion. When people cannot or do not pursue this way of relating to each other, you have certain mutations that occur, some of which are more disastrous than others. Some of them just are the result of people unable to do or unwilling to do one of those things. So first of all, one, just like the word says, if you have not because you ask not. That even more so, it is the inability to ask that means we can't have the connections and communication we want with people. And we don't ask, and I'm repeating myself from a previous thing, for two major reasons. One, we think they'd say no. And the truth is, if you know someone's will is against it, unless God is orchestrating it, if it's just your feelings and their feelings, your preferences and their feelings, if your friend, or whatever the relationship is, you know that they don't want to, you have to let that go. You don't. One thing we do is when we know that somebody's going to say no, we try to manipulate them into saying yes. Try to put them in a situation where they owe you so many things, where they're obligated. So that's your id, that's your sin, that's your self-nature saying, oh, I really, really want this person to be this way. And I know they don't want to, and I know I can't say it out loud. So then your own subconscious begins to sort of direct you toward, how do I get this in a dishonorable way? And then secondly, if you can't say it, maybe you know that if you said it, your own conscience would actually convict you. Like, I know this is the wrong thing to want, but I want it so badly. Whatever it is. Two, if there is no agreement, someone controls someone. When there is no agreement, whoever is more manipulative controls the other one. Or it's a constant fight in that direction. And also sometimes if there is no agreements, there are no relationships. And that could be what you want. I'm not sure. Thirdly, among people that cannot self-examine and come to a conclusion as a sentient image bearer what they want to give and receive in their connections with other people, you could have someone that actually wants to be controlled. I find that a distasteful notion subjectively, but I've seen many relationships that appear to be long-standing friendships and marriages and business arrangements where one person really has a clear idea what's happening, the other one's along for the ride, and they'd like to be told how things work. They'd like to be directed. They'd like to be managed by someone else. I don't relate to that, but I see it occurring a lot, and their own free will is choosing it. Some people want total freedom from any sort of obligation or agreement from other people. Now that's, if it only affects you, that is freedom. That is volition at its highest expression. But if you are someone who makes no agreements and just does what you want, you run the risk of continuously violating other people's volition. Now, finally, what if there are things that you want that you can't ask for? You don't believe are sin, but you know you would not be received well. For some reason or another, you don't feel like you can just say it. I have a great need of fellowship in my life for a variety of reasons. I need a backstory here. So, a few years ago, when I was originally divorced, I sensed in the spirit that the devil wanted to take advantage of my family's problem with depression, and that I knew quite clearly that depression was a wolf at the door. And I knew if I spent the first winter after my divorce in isolation, then I would fall into a pit of depression. And I believed that it was the enemy's intention that I would succumb to self-destruction, if that makes sense to you. And so my instinct was, I need to find a church. Back up from that, one of the things people don't tell you about divorce is you don't just lose your marriage. You often lose most, if not all, of your social life, if the social life was built on things families do together. So I didn't have any connections Let's put it that way. Anyway, I knew that if I didn't occupy myself with something as time-consuming as a family, that depression and self-destruction were things that were in the cards. So one of my former students invited me to his church. That's a very culturally specific church. Um, I'm going to avoid, it's not my job to criticize anybody. I can only talk about my own experience. It's a place you would not think I'd fit in culturally, and I do not fit in culturally. It's a place where I relate very poorly to them, but they have a huge amount of things that I've been able to do, and they've fulfilled the bill of keeping me busy, and therefore saved my life, if that makes any sense. They haven't saved my life relationally, or anything like that. They saved my life chronologically, in the sense of, had I been alone and bored, the devil would have had some kind of victory. And so they, because of being so different from them, I have a lot of things I can do that many of them need people to do. Let's put it that way. So, nonetheless, it's a culture I don't relate well to. It's a culture that I've been there a few years, and I don't think I've made any friends since I've been there, other than friends I brought with me or the student who invited me there. It's a big cultural difference. Anyway, there's built-in cultural groups that have their routines they do and that are hard, that you can't just jump into. So what I do when I have a feeling that I am greatly in need of prayer and fellowship and people to spend time with is I actually start praying. And I say, God, would you put it on somebody's heart to, make time to, hang out with me this week, or, have lunch with me this week. And quite frequently, God has just put somebody in my path who is from this church or perhaps other places and just showed up, yeah, I've got time. You want to have lunch? And they have inserted themselves in, and it's for reasons I don't fully understand. I mean, okay, I understand the cultural things make it very hard. I can't just kind of slide in and be a part of it. I don't know what to say. So, but that's something that praying, see, I think here's the difference. Making demands on people is wrong. Not expressing what you want is wrong. Asking God and just letting God do what God's going to do is never wrong. Now, you have to accept sometimes the answer is no, sometimes the answer is yes, sometimes the answer is not now. You will find that in my video, 3 answers to prayer. But those are all ways that we can look at this thing about agreements. And I'm further challenging you, the thing that you want, if you can't even ask God, if you can't ask a person, that's a red flag. If you can't even ask God for it, that's a red flag. If you cannot ask God for it, there's probably something you should not have. If you can't ask people for it, it's probably something you cannot have. But at least you ask God. He's in charge of what's happening. So the ways that your life lacks relationally, lacks with friendships, lacks in all manner of human interaction, I would say pray. I definitely, it has been the most significant thing in creating any sort of resource to fill the void of my fellowship life, of my emotional life, of my relational life is prayer. It's not really been within my authority to choose who my friends are. That's a peculiar thing to say. God has put certain people in my life that I relate to, that I click with, that we can talk on the same level. And it's very hard in many ways to just kind of like gel with people, just kind of jump into a culture and be engaged and satisfied with it and not drained by it. Okay, that is rambling on purpose. It's all the little missing pieces and untied shoelaces of Pactium. So, if I have blessed you, encouraged you, or equipped you in any fashion, please like and subscribe. And as always, pray more, complain less.